Ben Bagbag Omer, Hafachba, Vahafochba, the Chola Va. Ben Bagbag said, turn it over and turn it over again, for everything is in it. This ancient sage with a strange name was referring to the Torah. In this famous statement, if you are looking for meaning, for wisdom, for direction, or a place to challenge you when you need to be challenged, if you're looking for a place to comfort you when you need to be comforted, then the Torah is the place to turn to. Turn it over and over again, and you will ultimately find what you are looking for. I could not help but think of Ben Bagbag in looking to this week's Torah portion. How many times have I read the story of Noah and his ark, of God's pained and terrifying response to a world filled with evil and violence, of Noah's willingness to listen to God's voice and build an ark, and along with his immediate family, gather animals of all kinds, and in so doing, save the world. Of the dove who returns to the ark with an olive branch in its mouth, announcing that the flood has ended and a new day has dawned. Of the rainbow that remains an eternal sign that God will not destroy the world again through a flood. And yet, every time I read this story, something new jumps out at me in a way that speaks to the present moment in a powerful way and reminds me of the eternal relevance of Torah. Hafochba v'hafochba. Turn it over and turn it over again. Decholava. For everything is in it. At the end of 40 days, as the waters receded, the Torah records the following. Vaydaber Elohim el Noach lemor. God spoke to Noah saying, Say, min hateva, ata ve'ishtecha uvonecha, unese'e banecha itach. Come out of the ark, together with your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives. The word say is in the command form of Hebrew. It has the sense of get out. Now, I ask you, why would Noah have to be commanded to get out of the ark? I can say that if I was confined to an enclosed ark under the most horrifying of circumstances, with animals of every kind enclosed in a small space for 40 days and 40 nights, and having survived the destruction of the world as I knew it, I don't think I would be waiting for an engraved invitation to leave it. So why does Noah need to be commanded to do so? This is how the rabbis of an ancient midrashic work called the Tanchuma interpreted Noah's hesitancy to leave the ark. Once the waters had abated, Noah should have left the ark, they say. However, Noah said to himself, I entered the ark with God's permission, as it says, go into the ark. Shall I now leave without permission? The Holy One, blessed be He, said to him, is it permission then that you are seeking? Very well then, here is permission. As it says, the God said to Noah, say, get out of the ark. It is of interest that Elie Wiesel, a man who suffered in the flood of the Holocaust, interpreted Noah's reluctance to leave the ark as the profound anguish of a survivor. He believed that Noah was the world's first survivor. And he believed, Elie Wiesel, that after the flood, Noah transitioned from a protagonist as the savior of the world to a witness, burdened by the immense responsibility of being the sole survivor of a destroyed world. In that same midrash, Rabbi Yehuda bar Eli offered a very different interpretation than Elie Wiesel. This ancient rabbi said, "If I had been there, I would have broken down the door and taken myself out of the ark." I've broken down the door. This midrash has taken on new meaning for me over the 2 years since October 7th. Turn it over and over again, Ben Bagbag taught. There is always new relevance. There's always new meaning in the Torah for those who seek to find it. Whether they knew it or not, this ancient midrash offered a plan forward, a plan that Israelis adopted since October 7th. Yahya Sinwar, may his name be cursed, the mastermind of October 7th, named the Hamas attack on Israel as the Al-Aqsa flood. The Al-Aqsa flood. By referring to the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, one of Islam's most holy sites, Sinwar thought to heighten the attack and raise it to the level of a Muslim holy war. Now, in the Quran, Noah is understood as a prophet, a man who was mocked for his faith, but ultimately saved the world from evil. Using the word flood, Sinwar put himself in the place of Noah and employed the imagery of an overwhelming and unstoppable force, suggesting that this massacre, this attack on Israel, would overrun Israeli defenses and sweep away, wash away, destroy the one and only Jewish state. In his planning, Sinwar had been working with Hezbollah in Iran and believed that Israel could be destroyed if all of these armies attacked from different directions at the same time on different fronts. The flood, like the ancient flood, would come from all directions. Thankfully, Hezbollah in Iran did not respond as Sinwar had planned. What has also come to light more recently is Hamas's meticulous planning to terrorize Israelis through atrocities. Lest anyone tell you that the horrific, unspeakable, inhuman acts of violence recorded by Hamas and uploaded to social media were the spontaneous acts of a few bad actors, don't believe it. Sinwar's records, his own writings on the subject, tell a different story. Ronen Bergman, a well-known Israeli journalist, has done extensive research on those records and has shown that Hamas fighters were instructed in detail of what to do to women and children and to how to record these unspeakable acts and place them on the internet with the sole purpose of terrorizing Israelis into inaction. As Sinwar himself writes to the Hamas leadership, the goal of their atrocities was to break the spirit of Israel. He expected the Israelis to respond as Elie Wiesel understood Noah, traumatized and incapable of opening the door to respond. Instead, as he and the leadership of Hamas learned the hard way over these past 2 years, Israelis responded to the Al-Aqsa flood as Yehuda Bar Eli imagined. They broke down the door and they responded to a shattered world. This is how Israelis responded to a person. This is how the IDF responded. And today, in honor of Ezra's Devar Torah and his Mitzvah project, I thought to tell you a few stories of those who served in the remarkable service of Magen David Adom. They are the unsung medical heroes of this terrible flood of violence that was unleashed on Israel. Magen David Adom is the organization that makes up the vast majority of Israel's emergency services. They are Israel's 911. Remarkably, they also serve as Israel's largest volunteer organization with more than 30,000 trained medical personnel and first responders. Magen David Adom represents a beautiful cross-section of the state of Israel. Their ranks are made up of Israeli Jews, Muslims, Christians, and Druze, and their response since October 7th has been nothing less than heroic as the members of the IDF. They did not wait for permission to respond on October 7th or in the 2 years following. Those first responders, those paramedics literally broke down the doors in order to save lives amidst the floodwaters of violence, of mayhem and murder that Sinwar and Hamas unleashed on Israel. Of the hostage bodies that have recently been returned to Israel was Ronen Engel. He was buried on Sunday of this past week on his beloved kibbutz on which he was murdered near Oz on October 7th. On that day, Ronen's wife and daughters, Mika and Yuval, were also kidnapped to Gaza and were later released as part of a hostage deal. At his funeral, his wife, Karina, spoke of her husband and she said, "You were the heart of our home, the one who knew how to make us laugh, even on the hardest days, with your endless humor and optimism. You were always smiling, always with a witty line that made everyone turn to look at you and ask, 'Is he serious?' And then hear you say, 'I'm crazy, but I'm an optimist.'" The family released a statement on the day of his funeral that read, "After 744 days of longing, doubts, and uncertainty, our beloved Ronen has returned home to the soil of Nir Oz that he so loved. Now we can begin the rehabilitation process that we need, that we have so much waited for. Now we will have a burial plot to cry over. Ronan Engel was trained by Magen David Adom to be a paramedic in order to save lives. On October 7th, as the Hamas terrorists were flooding his kibbutz, Ronan Engel ran out of his family's house to save his fellow kibbutz members' lives. He was carrying his Magen David Adom first responders medical kit. The bag which bore his name contained life-saving medical equipment and was later found in the kibbutz after his lifeless body was kidnapped to Gaza as a commodity, a bargaining chip for the terrorists. Ronan deserves to be remembered as a hero, cut from the same cloth as Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, a man willing to break down the door of the ark to save lives in a time of the flood. That is the spirit of Magen David Adom. There are hundreds of other stories like Ronan's, of other Magen David Adom's brave medical volunteers. People like Zvi Tibor, a senior MDA volunteer paramedic who is a high-tech professional and a married father of 3, who recalled the harrowing events of October 7th, and like most Israelis, he was awakened by sirens at 6:30 a.m. And when MDA called and asked if he was prepared to go south where the fighting was going on, he responded, of course, and jumped into his ambulance without hesitating. He said, "I didn't think twice." Other people like Dr. Shafir Botner, director of MDA's paramedic school and a senior member of the elite medevac helicopter and ECMO unit, who helps to certify 650 paramedics annually in the state of Israel. The medevac unit operates emergency helicopters from hubs in northern and southern Israel, while the ECMO unit makes MDA one of the few emergency organizations worldwide to use this advanced technology. On October 7th, the helicopter that he was serving on, transporting wounded to hospitals, was actually shot down. As the helicopter was coming crashing to the ground, Dr. Botner was calling for help. Dr. Botner's daughter, who is also a paramedic serving Magen David Adom, heard her father's call. Amazingly, everyone on board survived. Dr. Botner survived and went home to his family for a few hours, but returned to his helicopter unit the very next day. Dr. Botner said, "We knew if we didn't continue flying, that we would never fly again." They too possess the spirit of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai. They broke down the door and went out into the floodwaters. I could tell you stories of others who drove their armored ambulances into the battle zones to save civilians, or the innovations of Magen David Adom to ensure that for the first time in history, transfusions could take place on the battlefield itself, saving many IDF soldiers. But I will end with one last story of a Magen David Adom volunteer that, while not directly related to the war, captures the spirit of this remarkable organization and the people of the state of Israel. Her name is Ayala Chaimson. She is a very traditional Jewish woman with 4 young children who is also a paramedic with Magen David Adom. She went into unexpected labor at just 25 weeks. And things happened so quickly in her parents' home while her husband was away, while help was still en route, that she delivered her own baby. And holding this young child in her hand, she realized that her premature baby was not breathing. Ayala used her medical training to perform life-saving CPR on her own child. As Ayala put it, in those moments, all I could see was my tiny baby lying there, and I knew I had to do everything possible to bring him back. And everything happened so incredibly quickly. And when the MDA intensive care team arrived, there was still no heartbeat. They continued resuscitation efforts all the way to the hospital. And following approximately an hour of resuscitation attempts, the infant's heart finally began beating. And the baby was entered into the NICU at the hospital. Ayala and her husband Chaim named their son Lavi, meaning lion in Hebrew. She said, nobody believed our baby would make it. But through the miracle after miracle, he fought through each day in the hospital. Ayala said, Chaim and I could see the determination and resilience in his eyes, which is why we named him Lavi, because he fights with the heart of a lion. Ayala could have just as easily been describing the people of Israel. She went on to say, I am grateful to God for giving me the clarity and the composure I needed in those critical moments, reflected Ayala, and for allowing me to draw on my medical training and experience as a Magen Adom paramedic to save my child. Friends, as the 2-year anniversary of October 7th passes, Israel is still reeling in shock, and the fatal wounds of that day remain painfully raw. Families of victims, hostages, and fallen soldiers continue to navigate the long and difficult healing process. Alongside them are many paramedics and first responders of Magen Adom who treated the wounded and were instrumental in saving countless lives. People like Ronen Engel, may his memory be for a blessing. People like Zvi Tiber, Dr. Shafir Botner, Chaim Chaimson, and her son Lavi stand as a powerful testament to courage, resilience, and the enduring commitment to save lives against all odds, to follow the example of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, who given the opportunity, would crash through the door of the ark. Ben Bagbag Omer, Hafoch ba v'hafoch ba, dechola ba. Ben Bagbag said, turn it over and turn it over again, for everything is in it. I invite you to pick up a Magen David flyer or a bookmark on the way out, learn more about this incredible organization, and support their life-saving work, and to honor the Bar Mitzvah project of Ezra Stevens as well. Shabbat Shalom.